G'day, Nick from Z Grills Australia here. Today we're going to look at how to replace the ignition rod or hot rod and also the entire controller if necessary on the Z Grills 450A. In terms of the spare parts we're going to need a hot rod or ignition rod, spare controller and some cable ties to do all the cables back up. In terms of tools, a pair of pliers, snips or heavy duty scissors, a little spanner or wrench that came with a grill or something equivalent, and then a set of small screwdrivers. He's going to need a small flathead screwdriver to remove the cable on the controller, and also for the fire pot it's a good idea to have either the pliers or a little socket wrench set as well. So let's start by taking out the grill rack, the grease tray and the baffle plate out of the grill so we can get access to the fire pot and everything inside. Koala Claw is a great tool to help with this. Take that out. So as you can see, this grill is not a fresh new one. It's done quite a bit of work. So we're going to start off by vacuuming this out, get this area nice and clean, so it's a bit easier to work on. Let's scoop out the wood pellets from in the hopper here and vacuum the bottom out there. Otherwise, when we put this on the table, we're going to have pellets going everywhere. So scoop out all of the pellets that are in the hopper here with a plastic cup or scoop. I find works really well. The final few we can just vacuum out. To make this process really easy, we're going to take the whole hopper assembly and put it on the table. It's much easier to do that than trying to do it when it's still on the grill. So in here we have these 4 bolts which are holding the whole hopper assembly onto the side of the drum. So what we want to do is just loosen those off. Loosen them off first, don't take them all the way out. If you've got some gloves, I'd put them on if you've got a dirty grill because you're going to get oil all over your fingers. So get in here, if you've got a socket wrench then obviously use that. It's going to make it a lot faster. Once they're loosened off, go ahead and take the bottom 2 out. So just put those over the side. I'm actually going to put them down here in the drum so I don't lose them. Make sure we've loosened off or cut the cable tie that's around this cable here. This is the temperature sensor cable that goes from the temperature probe here to the controller. By loosening this off, it allows us to lift this assembly over onto the table while it's still connected to the drum, which just makes things a little bit easier. So I'm going to take these last 2 bolts out and lift this hopper here across onto the table. Just support the drum with your hand on the handle there so it doesn't drop down, and that'll make it really easy to get these bolts undone. And then we can just slide this out and lift it onto our table. Probably not a bad idea to put some newspaper or something on your table because this is going to be pretty dirty on mine under this last bolt, and then I can lift across. So gently lift this across. Remember, this cable is only so long. Alrighty. So now we've got our cable here and we can now start working on this while it's still connected. So let's start off with these 4 bolts here, which will give us access to the ignition rod. Now you can undo these with a pair of pliers, flat nose pliers, which is not too difficult, or a little socket set, obviously that makes it even faster. So to remove the fire pot, just give it a bit of a tap, and then we can gently rotate it to the side and up and out. Bit of a wobble, and it'll pop out. Okay. Flip it upside down. You can see here the screw which is holding the ignition rod in place. Okay, one tool I forgot to tell you about is a screwdriver to undo the screw here, which will release the ignition rod. Slide the ignition rod out. Now we've got this loose, we can now flip the grill over and get access to the bottom. Now if we weren't replacing the ignition rod, we would just obviously skip this step here. So now what we want to do is get access to this bottom plate. So we've got these screws on the bottom here, and this will give us access to the controller and the ability to replace the ignition rod. We've got this cable tensioner on the bottom of the cable here, so just push through as you drop off the bottom panel, put it off to the side. We've also got a little box here on the side. We can release that with these 2 screws. This is just holding all of the cables in place. We now have access to all of our cables. Now I've taken this grill apart a couple of times, so your cables may look a little bit different in terms of the way they're bundled together, but the same basic concept. You've got all your cables here bundled together nicely. At this point, if you were just replacing the ignition rod, unplug the ignition rod, which is this high temperature white double cable, pull the ignition rod out, help it through a little hole in the side here. Okay, ignition rod is released. Now, to put the new ignition rod back in, you want to pass it through this hole, which is in the side here. You can see it quite easily if you put your head down there. There's a hole in the side of this box, and we can just drop this new ignition rod back in and just feed it through. Make sure when we pull this cable through, we don't pull it all the way through. We have it on the lower side, my right hand side of this tube here. So we can now go ahead and put this back in place. So what we want to do is slide this in. Now, in terms of how far we want it to extend, that is going to give you enough exposure to ignite those pellets on the hot rod or the ignition rod. Tighten up the screw. Don't over tighten any of these screws. Just hold it in place. That's enough. Now we can drop it back down to the side. Bit of a wiggle. Drop it down in place. Okay. Now, to get this to sit back, sometimes it'll catch on the lip of this tube. So just lift the tube up with your fingers and tap this plate back in place, or the fire plate back in place. Let's put those screws back in now, and we are done for the hot rod. Again, don't over tighten any of these screws. It's not the wheels on the truck. Ignition rod, hot rod is now taken care of. Let's have a look at the controller. Okay, if we want to replace the controller, what we want to do is unplug all of these cables. Now, they're all color coded, and or they have names. Hot for the hot rod or the ignition rod, MOT for the motor, for the auger motor, and then fan for the fan. And you've got your main power supply in as well. Once we've released all of these, we can go ahead and undo the top two screws. So gently rotate this around, and we've got access to these two little terminal blocks to release the temperature probe. Gently pull those out, take out our controller. So let's grab our new controller. Let's loosen off these little terminal blocks here if they're not already. So there's a nice big hole in there. So we can put our temperature sensor probes back in. There's no positive and negative on these, so either hole is fine. Slot that in there. And the other one, make sure they're nice and firmly in place. We can now drop our cables through. Two screws back in place. If you're not sure where the cables go, just have a look. They've got these stickers on here. So we've got fan, we've got hot, and we've got motor. And obviously you can see where all the cables are coming from. The fan there, the auger motor under here, and the power supply coming in, and our ignition rod or our hot rod. So let's plug those back in together. So we've got our purple and white, which is our hot rod, or ignition rod, as we call it in Australia. We've got our motor here, plug that back in. We've got our fan, and our power supply, which is coming into this black and white one. So we've got a fan back here on the auger motor, and we've got a fan under here. If we touch those, obviously it'll make a buzzing noise, it'll damage the cable, and the fans won't turn. So we want to get these all bundled up, and with the 450A, we have this little box on the side, so everything kind of tucks away into this box here. So we just want to kind of pull everything up nice and tightly over here, and we're going to be able to drop it down into that box. This power cable does not sit in the box, that sits by itself. So if we separate all these cables from the power cable here, and we just bundle these neatly together. So just grab some cable ties, make sure that your hot rod has been kind of pulled up tight, so there's no slack. There's no slack here. I'm going to put one more here, catch these bottom ones. So let's just cut the ends off those. Like that. We just want to tuck these cables across into this box here. They sit in there, so they're not going to move around too much. I've probably got a little bit carried away with my cables here, but that's fine. They're not going to go anywhere. So put these two screws back in. Feed this cable through. Just like this. So before we put this all back inside the grill, let's plug it in and just make sure that everything seems to be working properly. So let's turn it on. Lights flashing, that's good. So that sounds good. If we hear a brrrr noise, it would indicate that one of the cables is in contact with one of the fans, which means we'd have to open this up and fix that. But at the moment, our fan's turning. I don't want to stand this up and cover this bottom because we've got air sucking in here, but I can just gently tilt it up. I can feel the air coming out into the fire pot, so that's perfect. And I can feel, obviously be careful, but I can feel there's heat already coming off that ignition rod or the hot rod. So everything seems to be working. I can hear and I can actually see now the auger is rotating as well. So let's turn this off, because that's all good. We can now unplug from power and put this back inside the grill. And then drop this back into here. Just use your knee to support this, or your hand. Start with one of the top bolts. You're going to have to wobble around a little bit to find that bolt location, to line it up. Make sure your cable's not getting squashed. Alright, cool, we found that. Just finger tight for the moment is fine. They're all finger tight. Let's go ahead and bundle this cable up. Just going to put a cable tie around that. Tuck that down there, nice and neatly. Don't over tighten these bolts because you will snap the thread if you get a bit overzealous. Now everything's back together. I'm going to open the lid here. I'm going to turn on and watch and make sure that my auger is rotating properly. I'm getting air into the fire pipe. Auger motor is working, that's turning. I've got air blowing into here. And now what we can do is put some pellets in and fire it up like we normally would. And everything is fixed. Good work.